Friends, good morning once again. I welcome you back to this class of video lecture. This is BA Part 1 English Literature, and we have taken up today paper 1 Poetry and Drama. And friends, today we take up a very famous poem written by John Dryden, and the title of the poem is Alexander's Feast, or the Power of Music. Friends, John Dryden and Alexander Pope have been two great poets who belong to the neoclassical era of literature. And after neoclassical school, the romantic school is followed. So, when we discuss the literary terms and the periods of literature, then we discuss much about these two important periods. One is the neoclassical and the romantic school. So most of the poems in first year course have been taken from neoclassical school. They have been taken from Renaissance school and from the Elizabethan school. So Dryden's poem Alexander Feast, or the Power of Music, has been one of the popular poems on music. Dryden, before I come to the poem, let us have a brief introduction of Dryden as a poet. Dryden was born at Aldwinkle Old Sands, a village in North Hampshire, on the 9th August 1631. It was the 17th century Europe, a century of turbulence, politically, culturally, economically. It was a century of transition. His father was Erasmus Dryden and his mother was Mary Pickering. Both the families were quite well to do. Dryden came from a good family. He graduated in arts in January 1654. Soon after he had taken his degree, his father expired and he succeeded to his estate, being the eldest in family. So, his first important poem was Heroic Stanzas, concentrated to the memory of His Highness Oliver Lord Protector, published in 1659. When Charles II was restored in 1660, he wrote Astraca Redux, a poem. So Dryden's poetic career has been quite vast. He wrote many things, and one important satire on contemporary politics he wrote is Absalom and Achitophel. This poem is recommended at MA level, and this is a beautiful poem on the power of music. How does music impact human life, man and woman living on the earth, and to what extent it shapes the sensibility of man is the chief matter, is the chief crux, or is the central line of the poem. Dryden wrote this poem, or rather, he wrote something about this poem in 1683. He began a series of annual concerts arranged by the stewards of a society of musicians to celebrate Saint Cecilia's Day. Yes, you have to keep in your mind the name of Saint Cecilia, who was born on 22nd November, and the birthday of Saint Cecilia is celebrated all over Europe on 22nd November. In fact, the poem is dedicated to Saint Cecilia. The stewards were responsible for commissioning a poet and a composer to provide an ode for the occasion. So Alexander's feast was performed on 22nd November with music by Jeremiah Clark and published by Tonson. So In fact, this poem has been a sort of musical composition. It could even be sung on lyres, on some particular musical instruments. And friends, this poem is an ode. It's a lyrical poem. In this poem, Timotheus, the Greek musician, is represented as arousing different moods in Alexander by the power of music. Yes, in this poem, a famous Greek musician, Timotheus, has been presented, and he is singing before the great Greek king Alexander, and he is underscoring the power of music by singing in different moods. So, first of all, Timotheus arouses pride in him by singing the story of his divine birth. First of all, the story of the divine birth of Alexander is presented, and it underlines the sense of pride, the sense of royal dynasty amongst everyone. Secondly, Timotheus arouses zeal for war by singing in praise of Bacchus. Yes, and secondly, Timotheus arouses the zeal for war by singing in praise of Bacchus, the god of wine and war. In Greek mythology, Bacchus is chiefly known as the god of wine and war. Chiefly, it is the god of wine, but also it is taken as the god of war. So, first of all, pride is presented through music, pride of being born as a divine figure on earth, right? Then the zeal for war is presented, right? And then Timotheus arouses pity. Different moods, since music, as per Indian theory of rasa, as per Indian theory of संगीत, there are 9 रस. संगीत में no रस होते हैं, 9 रस. So then comes the mood of pity. Timotheus arouses pity by singing the deserted state of Darius II in the battlefield. Pity is represented, pride is represented, zeal for war is represented. These are major moods of human life. One must have some pride in something. Maybe the pride comes by being born in a royal family. The pride may be of being a world famous warrior. The pride may be of a world famous scholar, poet, critic, philosopher, prophet. Pride comes from different corners, right? And pride differentiates one from the rest of the masses, from the rest of the community. Then battles are, quite important in the history of man. It is evident from the history that over the years, over the centuries, over the civilizations, battles have been fought between two poles, between two parties. There are some world famous battles in the civilization, in the cultural history of man, which we can quote. And every continent has, every culture, every civilization has the history of battles. So battles have their own place in life. So the zeal for battle, there are some poems which talk of battleless society, where there is no battle. The prophets, that there are peace movements in the earth, on the earth, but they exist, the battles exist in society. So finally, pity is represented by Timotheus. So arouses love for Thais. Then love is represented. Without love, no musical composition is complete. So arouses in him feeling of revenge upon Persian people for slaying Greek soldiers. Yes, when love is celebrated, then how could the singer leave hatred, envy, and jealousy? So revenge is represented. So the poet ends by comparing Timotheus and Cecilia, right? As far as music is concerned. So the theme of the poem is like this, that a royal feast is designed, a royal feast is held when Philip's brave son Alexander is the son of great King Philip. So a royal feast is held when Philip's brave son Alexander the Great, when he Alexander won Persia, when Persia was won by Alexander. These are different cities of Athens. Athens has been a state of city states. So when Persia was won by Alexander, a great feast is held in his honor, and in the court, the great musician Timotheus is invited to sing the glory of Alexander through his musical compositions. So Alexander sits in his high throne with his brave generals sitting around him. Their brows were bound with roses and myrtle flowers. Brave persons are adorned with such crowns. He is surrounded by brave courtiers, warriors, noble persons, his peers. By Alexander's side sat the young courtesan Thais, his wife, young courtesan, his side, his mistress. She is beautiful like a princess, like an eastern bride. Only the brave deserve the love of the beautiful, is written by John Dryden. That's why he says it was at the royal feast for Persia won by Philip's warlike son, aloft in awful state, the godlike hero sate on his imperial throne, his valiant peers placed around, their brows with roses and with martyrs bound. So should desert in arms be crowned. The lovely Thais, his mistress, by his side, sat like a blooming eastern bride, in flower of youth and beauty's pride. Happy, happy, happy pair, none but the brave, none but the brave, none but the brave deserves the fair. This is the proclamation on the part of the poet that only brave people deserves the most beautiful mistresses, right? So this is the opening stanza of the poem, where the setting of the poem is organized by the poet. Timotheus, the great Greek musician, is ready to deliver his musical compositions. Timotheus was sitting on a high place with other singers sitting around him. He moved his flying fingers on the lyre, and music was heard. Feelings of heavenly joy were created by the music. Timotheus first sang the story of Jau's love affair with Olympia. This is a very famous Greek mythology that Jau had love affair with Olympia. The crowd also admired the sublime music and shouted, "A present deity." Alexander is taken as present deity. Since he was of divine origin, Alexander was enraptured to hear the music. Yes, such was the power of the music, that he was enraptured, he was overwhelmed, he was overpowered to hear the story of his divine birth. And this is pride. Friends, this is pride. He began to feel himself like a god. He felt himself like a god. He nodded in approval of Timotheus' song. The sweet musician sang in praise of Bacchus. Then, when pride is sung, the next number is of war, zeal for war, because as per the contemporary culture, it is war which uplifts the status of one before the masses, before the country, before the court. Unless you fight a battle and unless you are a winner, your status cannot be raised. Since it was that time, so as per the need of the time, after singing the love story between Olympia and Jao, the famous Greek musician Timotheus sings the story of battles. So friends, today we complete the first stanza of the poem. Thank you very much.